and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold. The wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can. It tells you of the beauty in this state of Michigan.
Hi there, come on in. It's that time of year. If you're interested in ice fishing and ice fishing festivals, we have the granddaddy of all ice fishing festivals up on Houghton Lake. It's called Tip Up Town USA, a tradition for many, many years that has drawn all kinds of people to snowmobile, cross-country ski, and ice fish on this frozen community on the ice. That's Tip Up Town. We're going to give you the opening weekend report, so stay tuned. I'm Fred Trost. It's Thursday night, time for Michigan Outdoors. Sunrise over Houghton Lake, the first weekend of the 39th annual Tip Up Town Festival, and there's plenty of ice.
Holy mackerel.
I mean, that's down to my elbow.
Yeah.
A good 16 inches of ice here on East Bay, and from his wheelchair, Roger McCarville manned the ice auger.
But this is where the walleye are. He knows what he's talking about.
Yes.
Roger's from the Outdoors Forever program, proving that handicappers can enjoy ice fishing, and Kathy Beitler is bundled up for Back to the Wind and to the sunrise.
That's the sunrise on one side, the moon
On the other, and the walleye right below.
Well, Roger was right on two counts, the sun and the moon, but the walleye didn't seem to be down there today. Maybe they were intimidated by the full moon, but the weather change didn't help, and local angler Bob Barney had brought us to his favorite spot. This particular spot that you're fishing in right here, this is East Bay on Houghton Lake, and it's deeper than most of the rest of the lake.
Yeah, there's through the middle of the bay, it goes from 16 to 20 foot.
Mm-hmm. And we're fishing about 10 right now.
Yeah.
But you say we're on a little island or something, or a ridge?
Yeah, ridge. And just on the other side of us, we got 16 foot on both sides of us where it drops.
Now you tell me you don't fish this part of the lake in the summer.
No, I tried it, but I just don't have good luck, so I fish mostly the North Shore.
Huh. Well, of course you grew up over there.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with the area.
Mm-hmm. Now you use a jigging Rapala.
Right.
With no minnow or anything on it.
Nothing on it, just bare.
Don't a lot of the fellas use minnows out here?
Some of them will use the heads on the treble hook, on the bottom hook, but I just use it plain.
While jigging is very productive, setting tip-ups with live bait is the technique Houghton Lake is famous for. Here's a homemade tip-up that a fellow named Chet Flazer developed about 10 years ago. Counterbalanced by a sinker, the rod balances on a post that's dug into the ice, and instead of a flag popping, the rod tilts when a fish takes one of the baits. A sinker on the bottom holds the line tight, a tip-up technique that's becoming more popular. Here's the most common type of tip-up with a submerged spool of line, but on Saturday morning we didn't see one fish taken on a tip-up. The cold front, I tell you, that even kept Bob Barney down to one sublegal walleye, far below his average through this hole in East Bay. The fishing didn't make headlines on the opening day of Tip Up Town, but you might have heard about some cars and trucks going through the ice. Ours didn't, because we didn't drive over the big pressure crack that stretched along the south shore of the lake. The driver of this Suburban tried to straddle the crack, joining over 30 vehicles who reportedly tasted the water under this weak spot. Was the ice unsafe at Tip Up Town? Heck no. Take a look at the crowds and all the ATVs and snowmobiles that were supported by what was probably close to 1.5 feet of ice at the Tip Up Town site. Everybody crossed the pressure crack except the cars. Well, I can prove to you that there was plenty of ice for everyone's safety. Let's take the sightseeing tour that's a popular attraction at Tip Up Town, a chopper ride over the lake. Cars were on both sides of the pressure crack, and recreational vehicles, and lots of people. Why don't they walk to their fishing spots? Well, look at the size of Houghton Lake. It's the state's largest inland lake, 22,000 acres, 5 miles from one side to the other, and just about all of it is laced with weed beds. It's shallow, averaging 7 or 8 feet deep. It freezes over quickly, the ice is extremely thick, and you can catch fish just about any place. But not on this Saturday morning.
Oh, have we got a big one?
Oh, she got a big one.
Whoa!
Look at that.
How many is that today?
Oh, half a dozen.
All that size? Well, they caught a few larger ones, but not much larger and not many. Everybody asked me where the fish were biting.
They doing anything down the East Bay?
No, that's where we were this morning, and it's this weather keeps changing every other day.
Yeah, it's front's moving through again, but no, we haven't. No pike at all. Not a thing. It's pretty slow.
Yeah, it's a slow day, but families still enjoyed the sunshine and open air. But to duck those bitter gusts of wind, people set up makeshift ice shanties of all kinds. A lot of people using regular summer camping tents. With a kerosene or gas heater, a temporary shelter makes a nice little ice fishing getaway. Some people didn't even set up a tent. A tarp between two vehicles provides a tip-up camp for big groups. And how do women and kids like Tip-Up Town? How do you like it?
I love it. This is great. This is a party.
Come up every year?
Last year we came up and we came up again. So, yeah, we'd like to make it every year. We just got a place up here, so. Yeah, it's fun. We had nibbles in our little shanty, but they got away, the little ones.
Barbara Gates from Warren is bound to become a Houghton Lake regular like the rest of us. Even if the wind was blowing, the fish weren't biting, and there wasn't as much snow as the snowmobilers would like, there's more than enough ice on Houghton Lake. Our midweek rains in southern Michigan will have little effect on this ice. So it's not a big deal that the weather change shut down the fishing on Saturday. We had a great time, and everybody knows that fishing success changes as fast as the weather. It did. Take a look at Sunday's catch in our trophy book.
Well, fishing was pretty good for a lot of folks at Tip-Up Town last weekend. Roller Radu of Gladwin caught the biggest bluegill, 10 and 5/8 inches long, 1 pound 4 ounces. Biggest bluegill stringer, 15 pounds 15 ounces. Well, that was turned in by Bob Ackley of Houghton Lake. Marty Haig of Alma caught the biggest sunfish, a 9-incher, 12 and a half ounces, and had the biggest sunfish stringer, 11 pounds 11 ounces of sunfish. Mike Petrich of Breckenridge caught the biggest crappie, 14 inches and almost a pound and a half. Biggest stringer went to Todd Petrich with 24 pounds 6 ounces of crappies. Herb Aylard of Crystal took the biggest perch, a 15-incher, weighed almost a pound 6 ounces. Darrell Blumline of Skidway Lake had 9 pounds 13 ounces for the stringer prize. Here's Fred Tooker of Houghton Lake with the biggest rock bass, 1 3/4 pounds 12 inches long. Chad Gibson of Holland had the biggest stringer. Scott Everts of Mason took the biggest walleye, a 7-pounder. Bruce Moore of Stockbridge had the biggest stringer of walleye, 15 pounds 11 ounces. Dennis Peterson of Houghton Lake turned in the biggest pike stringer. That was 23 pounds, 11 and a half ounces. But the fish story of the week, well, that came from Randy Ruggard of Leonard. Now, Randy doesn't fish much, so he only bought a one-day license. He set his first tip-up ever close to the Tip-Up Town site and caught this 39-inch, 15-pound, 11-ounce monster northern pike. Now, with luck like that, we have to make Randy Ruggard our Tip-Up Town USA Trophy Angler of the Week. This warm weather has slowed down wild turkey transplant efforts in southern Michigan. Now, despite that, 40 wild turkeys have been trapped in southern Michigan and transplanted to 4 different sites. As of this week, over 200 lifetime licenses have been sold. Almost a third have been fishing licenses. Firearm deer licenses have accounted for almost 25% of the sales. And the Lake Michigan Task Force is expected to okay a plan next week to change the trout limit in Lake Michigan to 3 a day per angler, no more than 2 of which could be lake trout. Now, the Platte River Hatchery is continuing to raise salmon, even though it's still under a judge's court order. Fishing on the Platte was stopped last fall by that court order. DNR hopes to have the issue resolved by this year's salmon run. And before you head up to Tip-Up Town this weekend, make sure your snowmobile or ORV is properly registered. COs are out in force. They wrote a number of tickets last weekend for unregistered vehicles. My old hunting buddy Bob Knope and I were hunting rabbits one day when he turned to me and said, "You know, Garner," he says, "I can't believe you own beagles." Well, I asked him what he meant by that, and he said, "Well, you don't do anything they say. They don't come when you call them. They don't fetch anything, and they don't point anything. They don't really cover a lot of ground. They're kind of slow and pokey, and they never pay attention."
He said, don't get me wrong, I love them, but I can't believe you're patient enough to own one. Well, I told him, hey, wait a minute. When your bird dog doesn't come when it's called, what do? You get mad. And if it doesn't fetch something it's supposed to, you're really upset. But not me. If my Beagle doesn't fetch a rabbit, well, that's okay. I didn't expect him to anyway. If he doesn't run a deer during the day, hey, I'm pleased. And if he gives a rabbit a good run, I'm really ecstatic. And when my Beagle comes when I call him, it's cause for a celebration. They don't work fast, that's true, but they're thorough. They climb in all the brush piles, and you wouldn't do that. So I told my old buddy Bob, I said, Bob, I can't see why everybody doesn't own a Beagle. As far as I'm concerned, the good Lord did his best work when he created Beagle puppies.
Craig Clements from Portland says, I'm planning a fishing trip to Lake Michigan for some pier fishing. What's the best pole, line, reel, and lures to use, and the best methods for perch, trout, bass, walleye, and crappie? Well, Craig, that question would take some time to answer. But if you took your fishing gear with you, the other pier fishermen would undoubtedly be glad to help you rig up. But for a comprehensive short course in pier fishing, come to our fishing workshop on Saturday, February 25th at the Lansing Civic Center. Taxidermist and expert fisherman John Hook from Oscoda will spend an hour and a half on pier fishing tackles and methods. In fact, there will be 11 other expert anglers on 11 other subjects during this workshop, and if you hang on, Bob Garner will give you the complete rundown in the outdoor calendar.
I'm pleased.
There's a boat, sport, and fishing show running through Sunday at the Pontiac Silverdome. The Saginaw Bay Walleye Club holds their awards banquet Saturday at Bay City. Tip Up Down USA at Houghton Lake finishes up this weekend with lots of festivities. Fred Trost Hunting and Fishing Museum will be open this Saturday and Sunday only. Now, the museum is on Old 27, just a block north of the State Police Post at Houghton Lake. Sunday, there's a Great Lakes outdoor hunting and fishing show at the high school in Mayville. Also on Sunday, the Barry County Conservation Club holds a handgun metallic silhouette shoot at Hastings. The All-Canada Fishing, Hunting, and Outdoor Show runs Monday through Wednesday at the new Exhibition Center in Lansing, and tickets are still available for the Stroh's Fishing Awards Banquet on Friday, February 24th, and the Stroh's Hunting Awards Banquet Saturday, February 25th. Now, tickets will be going fast. You don't have to have entered a big fish or taken a trophy deer, elk, bear, or turkey to attend the banquets, but you do need reservations. Also on Saturday during the day, we'll hold our spring fishing seminars with experts from all over the state. Now, Outdoors Club members will get into the seminars free and also get a discount on their award banquet tickets. For the phone number for these events, call the Michigan Travel Bureau toll-free on Friday during working hours.
Michigan has more to offer hunters and fishermen than any other state in the country. But I got to admit, the call of the North beckons me, and it did this past September. I went with a group of Michigan bow hunters up in far north in Quebec, up in Ungava Bay, where we hunted for caribou. This is the beginning of a 3-part series. Sit back and enjoy this change of pace. Ungava Bay is the famed caribou country in northern Quebec. Sometimes thousands cross rivers and lakes in massive herds during the fall migrations. The bulls are in velvet. They hardly notice the cold water rolling off their muscular backs as nature drives them to more favorable wintering grounds. We booked this hunt through Safari Nordique, flying from Montreal to Fort Chimo in the Ungava Range, then taking an otter 150 miles west to a remote camp. Although some of the country had small trees, most of it is quite barren. Tundra, land of caribou, ptarmigan, Arctic fox, wolves, and Inuit Indians. And our hunting camp. The otter reverses the pitch on its prop so it can stop on the short makeshift landing strips on the tundra. There are no roads up here, and we're going to be on our own for a week. 3 tents make up our hunting camp, 1 for the guides and 2 for the hunters. This is luxury considering the location. Bow hunter Phil Grable from Lansing is in our party. Dave Borgeson, the assistant DNR fisheries chief, is also an avid bow hunter. Each morning we'd leave in boats to be dropped off to our hunting spots, and this, the first day, was the sunniest. But the sun never shows itself for very long. Dave Borgeson Jr. rounded out the party, and the four of us, along with cameraman John Ford, set out the first week in September to fill our caribou tags with bows and arrows. The country is definitely far different than the northern United States. It's wide open and quiet, but intriguing. Small clumps of trees dotted the landscape here and there, but that's not where the caribou hide. There's really no place to hide in the tundra. It's quiet walking because of the spongy lichen that covers the rocky earth in northern Quebec. The caribou eat the lichen, and a few wandering bears eat the blueberries, and we found lots of them. And we probably would have spent more time picking and eating, but they were quite small. Needless to say, no blueberries made it back to camp. I tossed them right down the hatch. That's about it for the flora of the tundra. I suppose there's lots more than meets the eye, but there's not much we recognized. Compared to deer hunting, well, when you see a caribou track, there's no question about the size of these animals. They're big, and they leave big tracks. Seeing caribou is commonplace, and for deer hunters, I tell you, it's exciting. Both sexes wear antlers, and the smallest headgear you see would be a prize on any one of our white-tailed bucks. We saw caribou constantly, and oftentimes nearby, but always on far ridges. Unlike white-tailed deer that head for the woods, caribou have to protect themselves from wolf packs, and they seem more confident in herds in the open, where they can see a long distance too. I've never been to Africa, but from the pictures I've seen, it looked remarkably like the wild herds on the African plains. Like blueberry picking, we spent a short time fishing, casting spinners in the fast current by the rapids. If the fish were on the feed, we'd catch small Atlantic salmon. Dave Borgeson Jr. brings one to shore. They're beautiful fish. Dave Sr. prepared some poached in water. Oh, you can't believe the taste, and you can't believe the fight either. Oh! I tell you, that's why they jump like that, to throw the hook. Boy, they're incredible. Incredible. Right at the falls where we were fishing, a cow caribou and her calf plunged into the current, made a dash for the other shore. They're vulnerable in the water, but that's not how they're hunted, at least by man. Wolves keep an eye on the caribou crossings, though. We saw wolf tracks in the sand on the shores. They wait for caribou to cross, and if they get a chance, they'll take the calf. All this sunshine came on the first day, followed the next day by rain all day. We became well acquainted with Bert and John and Gordy from New England, rifle hunters who would undoubtedly get bigger trophies than us bow hunters, but we had a great time together. Wood is hard to come by in the tundra. It gave us precious warmth. Yeah, we had electricity, as long as they kept flying in the gasoline. After dinner, we'd swap a few stories, then hit the hay, because the days were long. Don't be fooled by the sun peeking through at daybreak. 10 minutes later, it can be raining, then the sun, then more rain. An hour's boat ride, and our guide Al drops John and I off by the same rapids we caught fish the day earlier. No fishing today, though. It's time to hunt caribou, an animal whose population has been growing in northern Quebec. It's excellent on the table. In fact, of all the venison I've had, I rank caribou at the top. I had this thought in mind the whole time I was hunting. With a bow, I wasn't counting on getting a trophy. I just wanted to get some good meat. My clothing, by the way, is made from Gore-Tex, the best rain-repellent wear I could find. In Gore-Tex mittens, the temperature was close to freezing mornings and evenings. We spotted caribou as soon as we crawled up the riverbank. 2 cows and a calf, a good sign the caribou were moving. In the next few days, I'd have moments of excitement. You'll see some of these next week. And the most exciting moment I've ever had while hunting, you'll see on this show 2 weeks from now. John Ford was right behind me with his camera. The record book bull was 40 yards ahead. My heart was pounding. Yours will too. Don't miss it.
This one's coming this way.
How long can a mallard duck stay underwater? Mallards can remain submerged for up to 16 minutes. Their heart rate slows to half its normal pace while underwater, greatly reducing the mallard's need for oxygen.
Eva Jean Thompson from Alpena sent us a recipe that is a unique venison barbecue sandwich recipe. Kathy Beitler, is it much different to put together from other sloppy Joe type
No,
deals?
really, the preparation isn't all that different. It's just got some different ingredients in it. Now, this is a roast that has been boiled, and then it should fall apart by itself. And just going to go ahead and pick it apart. And you just put it in a Dutch oven and just let it boil to its heart's content. And then after it's all picked apart, you're going to go ahead and put it back in the Dutch oven and add your ingredients. Got ketchup and horseradish and lemon juice and mustard and Worcestershire sauce and salt and sugar and some cornstarch for some thickening. And there's your secret ingredient.
Cabbage, huh?
Cabbage. Now, it just gives it that little bit of different extra crunch to it, and it doesn't all cook right down.
Well, look at this menagerie of ingredients. Do most of the barbecue sloppy Joe recipes
No,
have that?
basically they don't have, well, they have mustard and ketchup. Don't have your horseradish and lemon juice and sugar. Well, a lot of them, the barbecue recipes will have sugar, but this one has lemon juice to kind of counteract that. And then just go ahead and put everything all together and let it cook down. And like I say, the cabbage, even though it cooks down, doesn't really get all just soggy. It stays really good and crunchy. Gives it that something extra in your sandwich. And then just let it cook.
Let it cook, and that's it? Put it on the buns?
Yep, put it on the buns.
Well,
and then thicken it at the very end with your cornstarch so that it does stay on the buns.
That cabbage, I wonder if Bob Garner is going to go for that ingredient.
That cabbage in there is incredible.
And it's not overpowering on the meat at all, like cooked cabbage usually is.
I'll bet you know, I'm a sauerkraut nut anyway. I'll bet you if you substituted even the cabbage for sauerkraut, put sauerkraut in there, this is not.
You can put shredded newspaper in there and say, you know, I'm a shredded newspaper.
No.
It really tastes great.
No. Sauerkraut. I like cabbage, but sauerkraut in here, hey, just give it a little zing, you know.
It does.
Something that's been fermenting a little longer. And this is great. This is not sloppy Joe or plain old barbecue or manwich sandwich.
no.
This is really good stuff. Great twist on it.
Not to badmouth those sloppy joes and manwich
Well, I ate
sandwiches.
plenty of them. But I've never had a sandwich of that ilk as good as this. This is really good.
It is.
It's different.
You know, I could even use a little more cabbage in there.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too.
I think it'd be good.
Absolutely.
And the cabbage makes it crunchy, all the better. You can hear it while you eat it.
Okay, after you saw it, you wished you had jotted down this recipe. Well, you're in luck. It's printed in a handy clip-out format in the January-February issue of the Outdoor Digest. And if you're not a subscriber, we'll send you this issue free of charge, which also contains hunting and fishing articles, including one by Tom Opry on that record brown trout Bob Henderson caught in Arcadia Lake. The Outdoors Forever supplement has answers for sportsmen who have physical difficulties. The digest also describes each week's program, including our featured recipe. I don't think anybody can predict the fishing this winter. It's been up and down like a roller coaster. Look at the DNR report for the weekend of, Friday the 13th, when we just caught zilch on Bay de Noc. It says the catch of 8 to 11-inch perch was very light. Walleyes just plain took a holiday. That's on Bay de Noc. I tell you, it's been like that all around the state. Looking, first of all, in the south. The tone is set for steelhead. This break in the weather has put new steelhead in the streams. Fresh runs, they're running 6 to 7 pounds, 2 to 3 steelhead, and that seems to be about average. Walleye, Saginaw River and Tittabawassee River is the place to go. They're getting limit catches, 4 to 6 pounders. Otherwise, I can't tell you anything very encouraging on perch, on panfish, bluegill, pike, walleye. They seem to be running small, not very many of them, and they are erratic. Western end of the UP, plenty of ice, but there's slush on the ice, and it's fairly quiet. You know, that's a lot to bore through, 22 inches of ice in the western UP. Now, that 20 inches Bay de Noc, less in the southern part of the state. Houghton Lake, by the way, has up to 18 inches of ice, plenty for Tip-Up Town. The problem has been snow on the ice, but not in the south. Look at our snow report. Around the edges of the west, up to 16 inches in Charlevoix, 12 inches Muskogee Bay, 36 inches in the western end of the UP. We get a little bit of a melt, and that makes for some pretty sloppy ice fishing conditions. Check our deer report, our deer severity index. They are dispersed in most areas due to the break in weather. The severity index has been about comparable to last year, in some areas even less. The deer have had an easier time, so that means this winter is going to apparently be an easy one. The weather has been tossing up and down. That makes the fishing pretty difficult, but if you can and it looks good, get outdoors this weekend. It's a great place to be. Stop by Tip-Up Town if you have a chance. We'll see you next week right here. Michigan Outdoors is brought to you statewide by the East Michigan Chevy Value Leaders,
partners in preserving America's outdoor heritage.
Next week on Michigan Outdoors, we're going to head one lake north of Houghton Lake. We're going to head to Higgins Lake, where they catch those big jumbo perch. I don't know if we'll get into the jumbos, but we should get into some perch. We're going to have a great program. We're also going to have installment number 2 of the Quebec caribou hunt. Some more exciting action. Interesting country, isn't it? An interesting contrast to Michigan. We're going to have all this, Bob Garner's headlines, commentaries, and a lot more. So join us next week right here on PBS.